Empowered Nurses. It's Lori Brown with yournurseattorney.com and empowerednurses.org. And we are here for Hey Nurses, What's Next? How Nurses Became Business Owners and Successful Entrepreneurs, our second edition. And so I'm excited today to have Dr. Rachel Cartwright here with us. So welcome, Rachel.
Thank you very much, Lori, for having me on.
And like most nurses who become entrepreneurs, Rachel's a multipreneur, a serial entrepreneur. And so, Rachel, I'll let you explain to our viewers about your businesses.
Well, my business actually has changed quite a bit over the years that I have been working independently. And I think we all that have been entrepreneurs know that you have to kind of evolve with the times, and you have to be able to change a little bit and sidestep a little bit just because things change. And if you're not willing to do that, it makes it hard to run a business because you have to constantly be flexing. So, in 2001, is when I actually started having some interest in being an independent business owner. And, I'd spent many years at the bedside. 38 years being a nurse. So I've seen a lot, been through a lot, tested a lot of waters, but I always kind of liked the quality side of things, the legal side of things, the risk management side of things. And so when I was in my hospital setting, those were kind of the areas that I worked through and, began to be leadership roles in the areas of quality and risk management, and then eventually started teaching out of the hospital setting and educating nurses on things that we could do to do better in a hospital, primarily on documentation. Yeah. And it was at that point that I began to get discovered by attorneys who were interested in what I had to say. And that's how I kind of got introduced into the legal side, because they need people that understand the legal aspects to help them with cases. So that's kind of how I got my foot in the door. I did get some strict training early on, because you do have to learn the fundamentals of the legal language. You have to understand how the process works and, what the strategies are and what the goals are and what theories of cases are from a legal point of view. But what I learned quickly and early on was it's really not much different than what we do in a hospital setting when you get working with a supervisor or the chief nursing officer or the risk manager when something doesn't go quite right in a hospital. We talk about the same things. And I thought, well, you know what? I can do this because I've already done this in a hospital. It's just talking to an attorney instead of the nursing officers. So that's when I really just thought, I can really do something with this. And of course, as the years go on, you're getting older and older and older, and you begin to think, oh, can I stay at the bedside all these years? And so it gave me an opportunity to diversify a little bit. And that's kind of how I got started in my legal nurse consulting business way back in 2001.
That's so interesting. So now what are the different components of your business?
Well, now I do several different things. I certainly do case development with both primarily plaintiffs' attorneys is my probably most profitable client, if you want to put it that way. They have me work behind the scenes to help them put together their cases. That means I do a lot of the research. I do many of the chronologies. I help them identify who the cast of characters are. I work and locate with their expert witnesses. And I even help them with some of the more challenging depositions that are heavy with legal language that the attorneys may not be quite as familiar with. I can help them with that during depositions too. And then of course, trial is kind of like, well, do we need you or do we not? And I've been to many trials in a support role, as well as going through trial as an expert witness. So I see it from both sides. From a defense perspective, I've testified for the defense, and I've worked actually in case development one time for the defense, defending a small physician office practice, which was really quite interesting. I enjoyed doing that because it was just like an investigative work that took a whole weekend, and it was just really kind of fun, and we were very successful in uncovering what they were suspicious of. So it was very helpful and exciting for me to be able to help them do that, because they didn't know how to do that. And that's when they said, we need to find a nurse or someone that can help us pull these pieces together and help us determine, did this happen or did it not? And actually, I got the name or the referral through a plaintiff's firm that I worked with. They said, well, this is what you need to talk to Rachel. And so the defense firm called me through a plaintiff's firm that I was working with and began to work with them on the case. So you never know where your new clients are going to come from. But the bottom line is if you do a good job, they know your name and they will share your name with those that need it. And that's the goal, is to just always do a great job and wow them wherever you can, because then they remember who you are,
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the best part, is to do that. So that's the one piece that I stay very busy with. I also like to stay current in my clinical practice. I always have. So I still do my education and teaching across the country, and certainly with the changes that we've had with the pandemic, we've had to go virtual. And so most of my FaceTime that I do with, my audiences is now virtual, which is okay. It's just different. But I do look forward to coming back out and being able to do the one-on-one seminars, because I really miss the engagement with the nurses and share with them so many things to help them be better at protecting their license and, being a better advocate for their patients and knowing resources that are available. I mean, just to do the best that we can. So I still do the teaching part. Okay. And then the other piece that I do to try and stay current is I work adjunct faculty with the college, which is just great. I love doing that. These are newbie nurses, and you're going back to the fundamentals and you're teaching them right before they even graduate all the things that we're learning now that we should have learned years ago. And so I really get a kick out of doing that, is teaching them early on to protect their license, to make certain that they think a little bit more broad. They do the care plans that are so important when it comes down to litigation and trying to determine who really did follow the standard of care. It's so important that those entries be in the medical record. And so I really teach them to do that. So, virtual, I do things virtually. I have legal clients, both for expert and case development. I work as adjunct faculty, and I do some authoring of some articles and, playbooks that I need for risk management. I'm just finished working on one with Ashram, so that's exciting. Should come out soon this year. So I stay busy.
Great. Yeah. And I understand that you're involved with the National Speakers Association.
Yes, I am. I've been a part of the National Speakers Association for, this is my 6th year with them now. And basically I got started with that because I was speaking nationally anyway on documentation issues. And so I became a part of them, became active in the South Florida chapter, which is called the Florida Speakers Association. And this year I'm president-elect. And in June, I will be the president of the Florida Speakers Association. So that is a great and awesome group to be a part of. And they have chapters all across the country. And, there's certainly ones in every single state. And basically what we do in that chapter is we learn how to share our voice with the expertise that you have. So for me, it's, about the medical and legal side of care. How do I communicate that best? And I've often thought that, it's really one of those areas where the better communicator you are and you get your message across, it can help you in every industry, no matter what you're working in. It certainly has helped me being an expert witness of how do I convey, a theory of a case? How do I convey a standard of care? How do I make something very complex, something simple that a layperson, a juror can understand, and even convey that with your attorney clients, who may think they understand medicine, but they don't understand as much as they think they do. So there's ways you can help them learn that, and they still preserve their ability to keep their ego in check.
Yeah, and I did defense work for years, medical malpractice, and I noticed that my co-defendants attorneys were the co-defendant doctor attorneys were buying into what their clients said, and they had no clue. And you can't do that. You've got to, look on your own and use your own investigative skills.
Yeah. But it's fun. I mean, and the reason why I did that, I guess you call my business being diversified, which I would recommend really any entrepreneur, nurse entrepreneur, to do is to have several different avenues for revenue streams, because you never really know. And when I look back at my business, had I had only just done one thing, I might be in trouble right now. But I do the legal things, I do expert work, I stay in the college to stay current, I do some writing, I do some speaking, and being in touch with the National Speakers Association has given me opportunities to do keynotes at professional conferences. So I always have things that are, when things are up, the other one's down. When that one's up, the other one's down. So I'm always kind of flat, which is good. But I also know some speakers and, nurses that just strictly did one thing, that during difficult times, they may not have that to rely upon. And so we just need to think about that. And I'm so grateful that I did that years ago, and I've not had the struggles that so many nurses have had, because they did not plan or have that diversification to fall back on.
Yeah. And so, just like me, once you get good at something, you teach it to others, right?
Oh, yeah.
So what do you do with LNCs?
Well, that is something that I just love to do, is work with legal nurse consultants. I always have, probably since 2004, 2005, I started mentoring legal nurse consultants in a variety of ways. Just, talking on the phone, they would call me because I would see them at a conference and we would establish a relationship. And they said, hey, can I call you about certain things? I say, yeah, sure. And I'd have other colleagues, professional colleagues that were working as a legal nurse consultant like me, and they would have friends that would say, hey, can you talk with Rachel, or can you talk to somebody else about how you're doing this? I said, sure, I'll talk to them. Well, one thing kind of leads to another. And, if you're always thinking, which entrepreneurs do, you don't just stop thinking, your wheels are always turning, is that I thought I really can do better at helping legal nurses by offering that one-on-one personal relationship, customized directly to what it is that they need, because everyone's at a different level. And so I offer a residency program for legal nurse consultants, whether you're just aspiring to be a legal nurse consultant, or you're a legal nurse consultant who's just kind of struggling to get to that next level. Then, you can come and spend time with me, and I personally put out a program that is directed right where your level is. And then you have in touch with me through email, through telephone, through some masterminds of how to make certain that you get the goals where it is that you're going. And that has just been, it's such a rewarding thing for me. And I know that the relationships that I have gained by that one-on-one individual, I have friends that are now lifelong friends that are across the country, just because we connected that week. And it's a hard week. We work, 7-8 hours a day. They're real life cases. I challenge them, I test them, we dialogue, we make phone calls. I mean, they do what a real busy legal nurse consultant does. And they oh, wow, this is a lot. I said, yeah, it is. It's hard work, but it's fun, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, it's fun.
So it's interesting, Rachel she helps people with the legal nurse consultant skills to do the work, and I help people get the business and make the money doing the work.
That's right.
So it's kind of a nice compliment here.
It is.
So I'd like to go back to a couple of other things that you said. The first is about being a support staff for trial. And I think that most legal nurse consultants don't understand they can do that.
Yeah, what I did is when I worked with one of my first attorneys, it just opened my eyes to all the things that I can do. It really showed me the breadth of what a strong legal nurse consultant is able to support a firm in. And I was just so grateful to have him take me under his wing and just say, here, do this, come in, do this and this and this. And I'm going, wow, I can, yes. So really, what does it do when you go to trial and you offer support for that? My main thing was handling the exhibits and the documents. I knew the documents. Why? Because I helped them develop the case. I knew where the documents were. I knew where they were organized. I read all the depositions. I knew what the defendant said. I knew what our experts were going to say. I knew the documents that would support both. I mean, I knew where they were because I put them together for them in binders. So they knew that I could just immediately put my fingers on them. So they always put me in charge of the documents. When we go to trial and there were a lot of exhibits, then they would have me manage the exhibits, particularly if they were using the exhibits during their open remarks. Then I would be in the galley with them, and I would be like, I remember the first time I did, I thought, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? I'm standing here with all these huge things, and I'm like, going, what am I doing? And I'm listening to him give his opening. And of course, when you practice this, it's scripted, but then when it's real, it's like they just kind of jump around. And I'm like, going, no way. So I'm going through these exhibits trying to follow his lead. And I was never so nervous in my life, but nobody knew that. We were very composed. I was just like so nervous. But I learned so much and thought, man, this is why this is so important. And why you put that application together and say, this is why we do all of this, because you see the big picture. So I share all those things, those little stories and, you know, pearls of things that may not quite be exactly the way they experience it, but it takes the edge off at least a little bit. I had nothing like that. I was just plopped in.
And then you write them little notes about, ask them about this, ask them about that. And then, you know, when they ask that question that you gave it to them and get this bombshell of an answer, it's like, yes.
Exactly. And you know what I did too, especially with the attorneys who had trouble with the legal language, particularly like mics per kilogram per minute, all those little things that you say out. I mean, we know what they are as nurses,
right?
But I would write all of that out longhand, everything out longhand, so they knew exactly how to say it. And then the opposing side thought, oh my gosh, he knows what he's talking about. And it's like, well, you can just read, you know, but they learned too. And they really liked that because it helped educate them, you know, and then they were learning. I taught an attorney one time how to read an EKG, and I'm not talking in deep sense, but P, Q, R, S, and T. So he could see that because we had rhythm strips that were, you know, definitely you could tell a difference. And I wanted him to be able to see that if I wasn't able to articulate that to him. So he did, and he figured it out. And I thought, man, you did it. You remembered everything. So, you know, there's little things you can do, and that teacher part comes out when you have a good collegial relationship with the attorneys, and they really appreciate, they value you for that.
Yeah, they do. And, you know, we're their best kept secret weapon.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they don't share too much. With their good colleagues, they will, but a lot of times
they want to keep you to themselves.
That's right. They hold you tight.
Yeah. Then the other thing I want to mention is you had mentioned how a plaintiff's attorney gave your name to a defense attorney. And, you know, I just want to let everybody know that you're planting seeds out there. You never know when they're going to grow. A carrot grows in 90 days, but bamboo takes 9 years and shoots up 9 feet. You just don't know. And the more seeds you plant, the more harvest you're going to reap.
The one thing too that goes along with that little story that was passed around is I always tell my students that I have, but you know, those that I'm mentoring, is I just say, never say no. Says if you feel like you want to say no, you say yes, and you call me, and I will help you figure out what you need to do. Okay, because that scenario, when the plaintiff's attorney gave my name to the defense firm, you know, they were under the gun. They needed someone like immediately. And, you know, of course, I take my own advice. I never say no. So when I found out about what was asked of me, this was like late Thursday going into Friday. So, you know, I wasn't going to get anything until Friday. I said, when do you need this by? And she said, Monday. Can you do it? And I'm like going, you've got to be kidding me. I mean, we're talking going through volumes of medical records.
Oh,
and what I say is, of course, I can do that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
My calendar for the weekend. And I worked on this. And I'll tell you, the reward was incredible. They were happy. My plaintiff's firm was happy. I was happy in the bank account. I mean, and all I did is I did not say, no, I don't have time for that. It didn't matter. That was my priority. It was an opportunity, and I seized it, and I did a great job, and she'll remember me forever. You know, and that's just kind of sometimes what you need to do.
Yeah. And my philosophy is don't block the abundance. You know, if somebody wants to give you a case, figure it out. It's easy to figure out. You have tons of resources.
I like
that's
that.
what we do as nurses. Is, you know, we're given a patient, we have no idea, but we figure it out. And that's what we're so good at. So
yes, that we are. We are good figure outers.
So I also understand you do a yearly LNC Summit.
Yes, and we're planning that right now. And I just met with my administrative assistant here, and we were working on this. So I've got a whiteboard that's got Post-it notes all over it and all the compartments. And we're checking off everything, and it happens in July. And we started our first one last year, and it was a huge success. Really enjoyed it a lot. And we got speakers, in all different avenues talking about legal nurse consulting, the support people for nursing. We did OT, PT, and speech were actually a part of it. We had a forensic guy that came and talked about the forensic side of the electronic medical records. We had 2 attorneys that talked about safety and security and HIPAA violations. I mean, it was just like amazing. I learned some things. I thought, I need to be doing that. You
Yeah.
just always learn. You just always learn.
Always.
So this year, we're going to turn it up just a little bit, okay? And we're going to do certain things, provide CEUs this year. We did not last year, but this year we're going to provide CEUs for that. So that'll be a real value added to the conference. And then 4 of the days, we're going to focus on a particular topic. So we're going to be focusing on everything defense on one day, everything plaintiff on one day, what I call the cast of characters, or the people that kind of fit into the cracks, and other people you're going to be working with on cases, both plaintiff and defense on one day. And then the last day that we're going to have is going to be about how do you communicate effectively? How do you listen effectively? How do you take care of yourself when you're trying to build a business? Because there's so many dynamics in that. And communication and self-care and a little bit of marketing is going to be in there too because of the business. Those are all the things that we kind of don't focus on. We focus on the nuts and bolts of how the legal nurse is, but we really need to focus on that part too. And then on the very first day, I know I'm going to give a 4-hour presentation, and I know you're going to give a presentation too on the first day of the summit. So that's going to be really an exciting one this year because we have such wonderful topics and great speakers that are coming. And I'm really looking forward to it. Very much looking forward to it.
Well, I'm excited and I'm honored to be part of it.
Yes.
So let's go back to, you were working in the hospital, you were getting some consulting business and, starting to have this idea of going out on your own. How did you make that jump, or like what thoughts were going through your head, and what did you have to overcome to say, okay, I am doing this?
Well, it took a little while because it was new. I was raised in a job family. Nobody in my family was an entrepreneur. And I didn't have a lot of support in being an entrepreneur because everyone worked for that every 2-week paycheck. So that's what I knew. But it's not where my heart was. Once I kind of got out and I thought, man, I can be so much more creative. I can do this and this, and I just can't do this all the time. So, my wheels were already making a change in my head. But, socially and with my family, I had to kind of learn to step away a little bit from that. So how I did that was basically with fatigue, I guess, because I worked full-time in this business, and then I worked full-time in this business, my legal business, until finally I said, I can't do this anymore. And I put back to part-time, and then went back to agency, and I kept working full-time here. So I eventually, just through the process of just, I can't do this anymore, then I thought, okay, I got to choose. And I chose, and then just gradually backed out just a little bit, time, part-time, then agency, and agency keeps you really kind of in the groove, and it keeps you current, which is what adjunct faculty does for me. I just want to really stay current with what's going on so you can make good opinions and what's real. It's important to do that. But that's kind of how I did it. Was it fearful? Yeah, because I'm giving up that every 2-week paycheck. It's like, what if? Well, what if I just work harder and, I work smarter and I get more clients and, make sure that I keep track of my time. And then I started building, the technology in my office so that I could work smarter and work more efficiently and make certain I could turn invoices around the very first week of the month. And when invoicing took more than a day for me to do, I thought I got to find a better way because I was losing income.
Right.
And so I thought, okay, so I started looking for programs that would help me, keep track of my billable hours, and then invoicing with basically a push of a button, and you review it and say you're done. And so there are programs out there, and we share some of those things in the residency that I have, because I share with them how you can build a business with virtually nothing, because I built it on nothing.
Same
And I
here.
said, you really can, with nothing. And then you gradually put back in. So I teach them with nothing. And then during the day, I said, okay, this is where you can go today. This is what this is. This is what it costs. This is what we're doing now. These are the differences between this and this. But you don't have to have this now. You can do it just fine here. But when you're ready, then I'd recommend you going to this step. So they're like going, oh, okay. So I don't need all that. No. You know,
No.
you need a few programs to help with the electronic medical record analysis now that we didn't have to have then. So there's a few things you will need to buy in order to review electronic medical records, because most of them are PDF form. So you need to have a little bit of technology to do that, but not a whole lot, not really a whole lot to start doing this business.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have everything you need. You're a nurse. They want you for your nursing knowledge, not your legal knowledge.
Exactly.
Yeah. So another thing you said is your family wasn't going to support you because they were job people. And that is so true. So there are people in your life and other nurses that will say, who do you think you are? Why do you want to do this? So I call those people the Muggle world. From Harry Potter. And so just stay in your Harry Potter land and ignore the muggles and stick with what your gut says. If you want to have a business, you can do it. You wouldn't have the desire if you couldn't do it.
Yeah. And I really believe that now that I look back, because certainly it is fearful going forward, fear of the unknown, fear of failure, or you fear of being successful. Mm-hmm. Which one is it? You know, you don't really know. And then once you start making money, like, wow, now I'm afraid that, you know, what happens? Well, you know, you just can't do the what if game. You just keep, you know, doing what you're doing and, you know, make smart decisions. If you're passionate and really kind of having fun with what you're doing and you keep learning with new cases that you don't know, then dive into the books and learn what it is. I forget what the labs are. Well, then you learn the labs again. And I mean, it's therapeutic to your mind, to your mental health. I mean, I just find it energizing.
Yeah, it's the best anti-aging to keep learning.
It just really is, because every case is different. It's not pigeonholed in a checklist. Every single case you have to look at individually. And that's what I find is just fascinating about it. I just really do.
So what was the most difficult hurdle you had to overcome in your business, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I think that the biggest hurdle that I actually kind of had was, am I really for the long haul wanting to be an independent business owner, and kind of like, am I giving up nursing? You know, because I love being a nurse. I just do. I love patient care when I'm in the clinical setting. I love talking to the patients and teaching them how to do that. And in my own mind, I had to resolve myself that I really still am being a nurse.
You are. You just have different patients.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different venue. I'm still sharing all the knowledge that I have learned. I'm still seeing the benefits of how, you know, you can get a recovery for someone who's had a catastrophic injury. Mm-hmm. Then there's something to be said about that, because sometimes bad things do happen. You know, and it's also true that when you work on the defense side and you see clearly that these nurses, the allegations brought against them were completely false, they're completely embellished, and you can walk into the courtroom and just by one show where they absolutely did nothing wrong, then there's some satisfaction to that too. You know, so I have really, my mindset, I think kind of like you said, my patients are different now. You know, and you just have to kind of grow into that every phase. But my point is that I had to, in my mind, think I'm not leaving nursing by doing this. I'm just doing nursing differently by doing this. And that was a little bit of head challenge for me to do, to really kind of figure that out, you know, but I'm okay now.
Yeah, people always ask me, well, what's the difference between nursing and law? And I said, well, when I was a nurse, a patient didn't have a sign over their head of appendicitis. We had to assess, plan, intervene, and evaluate. And now in law, a patient or a person comes to your office, I still call them patients, and you still have the same process. They don't know what they need. You assess, plan, intervene, and evaluate.
Yeah, exactly. Nursing process everywhere you go, from kids to legal to healthcare. I mean, yes, yes.
Absolutely. So, what advice would you give for a new nurse who wants to start, or not a new nurse, for a nurse that wants to start a new business? What advice would you give them?
Well, I think first of all, starting a new business in legal nurse consulting, if you hear a lot of people tell you, you can't do that, you can't do that. Oh, I know so many people and they fell flat. Don't waste your money on that. I would say you're talking to the wrong people. You need to talk to people who are successful in legal nurse consulting and find out what they did and where did they go and what did they, do to get to where they are today, because those are the people you want to hang on to. You want to learn from those that are where you want to be. And that's one of the first things. And if it means that you need to, reach out and comb across the country to find somebody that you can work with, because there are legal nurses that will share their wealth of knowledge with you. There are those that won't, but there also are many that will. And those are the ones you need to find and attach to, so that you can get to a place where you are following like in their footsteps. You're learning from them. You're learning from people that have mastered the craft. Okay. And we're still learning, but they've mastered it to a point that, hey, I'm comfortable. I know what I'm doing, and I'm going to teach others. The other thing is not think that you have to invest $10,000 or $20,000 to do this. You don't. You already have the knowledge up here. You already have basically the tools you need. You have probably more stuff on your computer that you can get by with. You don't have to invest anything but your time and your knowledge up here to get started. You have to pick up a phone and call somebody, but you can help do that too. The thing is, those are some of the things I would encourage new nurses that are thinking about going into this field, or those that have stalled, is just get restarted with someone that is successful, and don't listen to people who are not. Okay. Either they don't want you to be successful because they're afraid you are, because you're on the ball. Okay. Or maybe they just didn't put forth the effort that was necessary to get there, because it does take work. I will not tell you that it will not take work. It does take work, but it's rewarding. It's very rewarding.
Well, I always say that businesses don't fail. It's the business owner, unfortunately. It really depends on how committed and persistent you are. And yes, it takes hard work, but come on, we're nurses. We are used to hard work. We are lifting 300-pound patients and cleaning them up. And basically, to start a business, you have to make some phone calls. It is so much easier, although we consider it hard because it's new for us and we forget where we came from when nursing was new to us. And now that we're so proficient in it, it's like starting all over again. But that's what it takes. And if you're committed and driven and persistent and do the steps necessary, you'll get the results.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for being on Hey Nurses, What's Next? And how can our listeners reach you if they'd like that?
Well, they can always go to medicallegalconcepts.com. That's with one L between medical and legal. So it's medicallegalconcepts.com. And they're all connected to my website. So that's the easiest one to go to when I'm speaking. You can find the residency program and information there. You can find the academy where I do a lot of training and coursework and CEU provisions there. And you can also get to my Nursing Impact site, which is, that's that take care of yourself site, the feel good piece that just, I got to nurture myself to stay in the game. So I have all those support for nurses that want to be a business owner. It's a great place to be. You get wonderful colleagues to work with. And that's how they can reach me there. Of course, they can contact you, Lori, if you want to give out my email, then you can certainly do that as well.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for sharing your genius with everybody today. And
Thank you for having me.
So we'll catch you next time on our next Hey Nurses. And thanks, everyone.
Good. Bye-bye.
Bye.